Welcome back. Welcome back to the AmandaFest podcast. I'm so excited to have you back here. I am your host, Amanda, and the intention of this podcast is to inspire and empower listeners to take aligned action in their dream lives, whatever that looks like for you. I am so stoked to have my incredible magical fairy of a human friend, Adam Dorsey, joining us today. Adam is an actor, a holistic health coach, a men's work facilitator, and he lives in Los Angeles. He's also known as the human permission slip. Adam has dedicated his life to accepting and expressing all parts of himself and helping others in that pursuit. Today, we're going to be diving into what is the human permission slip. And we're also going to dive into the energy of repression and how that's released through expression, and how expressing oneself is actually the key to opening up doors to healing. So as we've done in every episode, before we dive into the conversation, I'd love to take a moment for us to just ground into our bodies and get present so that we can really receive the medicine of this conversation. Typically, I lead a quick little mindful moment, but since we have a pro here, I'd love to invite Adam to help us drop into our bodies before we dive into this convo. So Adam, if you're so willing, I'd love for you to take it away.
I am willing. And,
Yay!
and I'm like mildly able, so we'll combine those two and put
Perfect.
it together. Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. If you're here and you're in a position where maybe you can get quiet for a second and tap into the body, we will do that. So with me, if you're able to, if you're in a position where you're not like rushing and you're actually in a sedentary spot, if you can close your eyes, maybe close your eyes for a second. And just take a notice for a second of the eyes themselves. Let them soften. You'll notice eyes are organs of perception, like organs of perception, touch, taste, smell, feel, right? Your eyes see, right? So when you soften any organ of perception, everything else is kind of told to soften through the nervous system. So soften the eyes. And wherever you're at, see if you can soften the mouth a little bit, relax the jaw, let it unhinge a bit. And then take all of your awareness and put it right inside your nostrils. And see if you can just simply at first notice the passage of air. No need to change it, just simply notice it. Just see where you're at. And just notice your body. And take a second to kind of scan it. And see if you can notice any points on the body that may be a little tight, or any points that may be a little good feeling. And see if you can have equanimity towards both of them, either the good feeling or the more challenging feeling. And simply scan and notice. This is to build a little bit of equanimity. And just observe. And now we'll drop in. And the way to drop in, that's funny because it drop in, go inside, drop all the way down to your belly. And if it feels cool, maybe put your left hand on there, maybe put your right hand on there. And then the breath will go so deep that it actually protrudes into the hands on the inhale. And then on the exhale, it softens and the belly softens. And there's a letting go. So on the inhale, there's an expansion. It just grows right into the hands, and you can soften the hands. It'll tell the belly to soften. That's another organ of perception. It's your touch. And each time the inhale goes a little bit bigger, a little bit longer, a little bit slower. And each time the exhale just softens a little bit more. And you drop in a little bit more. You get grounded. And if you're seated, maybe notice the root. Notice whatever's on the ground. And see if you can breathe that deeply, that you go all the way to whatever is actually touching the ground. So in yoga, they say move with mindfulness, right? The mind is not your brain. Your brain is a part of the mind, but the mind is every cell in the body. So for about 30 seconds, see if you can breathe into the entire body. See what it goes all the way to the periphery. If you can breathe all the way down into the hands, breathe all the way down into the feet, breathe all the way into the crown of the head. Take the breath that long and that slow. All right, I feel like you're all probably with me now. So last little bit, maybe go to the heart. And just allow the energy of the breath, that same style of breath, nice and long, take it now into the heart. So you can actually swirl it around the heart, start to percolate into that space. And simply notice the beating of your heart. And then last little bit, if you're with me, go up, take your fingers, wrap them right around your left nipple and give that son of a bitch a pinch. Then blink open your eyes. And remember, let's not take any of this shit too seriously. Right? There's more in the joy and the play than there is in the pain. So if you want to pinch your nipple a little bit harder. Welcome everybody. Hi, I'm Adam.
I typically like to lead a little drop in at the beginning of these podcasts, selfishly, just to get present and to be really here for these conversations. And as I was prepping, I do a little meditation before we hop onto these. And I had this download and I was like, why don't I ask Adam to lead the drop in? Because that's one of your superpowers, is your unbelievable ability to unbelievable ability to facilitate such beautiful spaces. And I, in the prep, quickly asked you if you would do it. We didn't even talk about what you were going to do. And that was beautiful and perfect. And for those of you who just experienced that, you're welcome. And that was also selfish on my part because I wanted a little Adam medicine, because it's been a moment since I've been in one of your classes.
It has.
Yeah.
I miss you in my classes.
I know. So I want to back up actually to the first moment I saw you, because I think this really encapsulates the essence of who you be.
Ooh, okay.
So I started going to Ecstatic dance in LA during the pandemic. So I believe this was September 2020. So we're, however many months, pandemic started March 2020, we're now in September. Everything's still shut down. 90% of the country is still locked down in their homes. LA decided, okay, it's nice weather out. We can do some outdoor socially distanced activities. So the wonderful Robin and Natassia, who are the creators of Ecstatic Dance LA, had this brilliant idea to bring dance outside. So for those who don't know what ecstatic dance is, Adam, do you want to describe what ecstatic dance is?
Ecstatic dance is dance how you feel rather than how it looks. There's no emphasis on a particular style of dance. It's a big ass dance party where the idea is to dance through everything, dance through all of your emotions, through joy, through pain, through love, through despair, through grief. The idea is to be present with whatever comes up for you, and dancing really does that. And so the main guidelines are like dance how you feel, doesn't matter how it looks. It's a sober event, which is, I know, challenging for some people, and it's no talking. So like you do your talking and you're communicating through expression through the body.
Yeah. And one of my favorite pieces of it is, the idea that we hold on to emotions and trauma in places in our body. So for many of us, like myself, where I had an issue of intellectualizing my emotions instead of feeling them, the dance floor was a really beautiful place for me to move through things that I hadn't even had the chance to process yet. So I could just feel through them and let them go. So that's what ecstatic dance is. But I started going in September of 2020. I was going through a tough time dealing with some, relationship dissolution shit. And I really needed a space to go. I really needed a community. I really needed a home. And I knew about ecstatic dance. I didn't know anyone that was going. And so I went by myself. And I remember one of the first days I went, I saw this man dressed in a unicorn onesie, skipping through the sand, like frolicking like he was 5, 6 years old, smiling, hugging everyone, like dancing, so happy. And I remember seeing you and being like, one, I need to know who this person is. This literally is my spirit animal in human form, in unicorn form. And I had this like dual desire to know you and to be you.
Oh, nice. Get into it.
I just wanted to, I was like, I want to do that. I want to wear a onesie and frolic and have all these friends and play. And so I started coming back every single week. Every week I would come and dance. And then slowly but surely, I think you were my first friend in Ecstatic. You were the first person that I met that introduced me to the community, which then became my community. And, the rest is history. Yeah. But I remember very, very specifically meeting you, seeing you even before I met you, and just being like, I've never seen any person like this in my whole entire life. I have to know who he is and how he operates.
That's awesome. I do kind of consider myself a bridge in that space where I kind of like look for people who might be new. Yeah. I do recognize that like when you're walking into a space like that, I remember because the first time I found it, I was literally just walking past the building. I heard the music and I walked in not knowing.
That's how you discovered Ecstatic Dance? Yes. Totally? Wow.
Yes. I was walking past it and I just heard this like, because it used to be indoors for those.
Yeah.
And the woman explained to me what it was at the front desk, and there was only like 15 or 20 minutes left. And she was like, so you can go in and check it out if you want. And I was like,
hell yeah.
Yeah, I was like, fuck yeah. And now, mild backstory, I'm from Boston, all right? And I'm still got a little bit of East Coast asshole still. There's just gonna always be in me. And I remember walking in and being like, what is this? And within, I think, 10 minutes, I was on the floor meowing like a cat with like this 50-year-old woman.
That's one of the beautiful things about it too. I was describing Ecstatic Dance to someone like 2 days ago, and there's so many elements to it to explain, but like one of them is just truly embodying your inner child and being weird and silly. And it's one of those spaces where, you can get on the floor and start growling like a tiger. And not only are people not going to judge you, but 10 people are going to come join you.
Yeah, and that's the key, because and then this is a little divergent, but it's similar to men's group, where the most powerful thing is somebody, after you've shared something that you're really challenging that you're going through, and somebody just looking at you and being like, yeah, me too, and that element of like you knowing you kind of want to get a little weird, and then actually doing it, and instead of having a reaction that's feeling judgmental, you have people who are like, yup, let's go. And they jump in. And so it is, I mean, that being in that space is in and of itself a permission slip, because you just have so many people that are on board to get weird.
Totally. Okay. So let's back up. Yep. Let's back all the way up to your journey. And, if you weren't always like this, I can't even imagine. What was your journey like from wherever you started off to where you are now? And then maybe in that story, you can weave in where the human permission slip came into play and what that even means.
Wow, I'm going to take you like all the way back then. As a child, my voice was literally and figuratively shut down. I had a thing called epiglottitis when I was 3 years old, which is a swelling of the epiglottis. And if left untreated, the passage of air will not happen. Your throat will swell up and you will die. And so quite literally, my voice was shut down. And then sort of figuratively, I hate to bring him into this, but I love you, my brother Paul. But my brother Paul was not so good to me as a kid. And then he was a year older, and I was not comfortable with expressing myself, at the dinner table or in the home. And I felt really shut down because of it. And so my voice was really shut down. And I do believe this, and I know people have heard this before probably a million times, but I do believe that your wounds do become your medicine. And I think that in this particular lifetime, mine is to express myself. And I think the things that are sort of ancillary or subsequent to that is like, I'm an actor and I'm a men's coach. And I think that comes from this primary need to express myself. And it's primarily because I didn't have the ability to do it as a child. And I had a father who was morally, this is my pops, he's actually right here. That's my dad. He died in 2020. He died right before I met you, actually. And he's a really good man, but he was of that generation, Irish Catholic, Boston, and he was shut down emotionally. Like, God bless my father, he was a good dude, but you couldn't talk to him about anything that actually mattered. You know, I never knew his like intimate fears. I never knew his like intimate insecurities. And that's what's changing in this present generation is like people are starting to be able to talk about this stuff, because I really do truly believe that when you talk about it, it takes the power away from it. We'll get more into that later. But I started to have an avenue of people around 27 or 28. That's when it kind of started to really happen. And I was in the corporate realm, but I was like dissatisfied at best. I was doing medical device sales and I had a great living. I was making 6 figures. I worked for a company where I didn't have to lie. I like had a pretty good job, but there was something that wasn't right about it. And I went to a thing called Vipassana, which is actually funny because it's the opposite of expression. You're silent for 10 days. It's a silent meditation. You go for 10 days. And in that meditation around day 6 or day 7, I got an intuitive hit that I was supposed to become an actor. Like I had never done it in my life, ever. I had never done it. But it just was so like, when you get tuned into this level, when you're quiet for 6 or 7 days, your body like literally gives you messages. And I mean that quite literally, like you'll get like hits. And I ended up pursuing it and I left my corporate job. And there's a great story behind there. We can dig into it if there's time.
There's always time. We'll make time.
Okay, good. Because it is actually kind of magical, you know. But I want to give you the abridged version of how I got here.
Okay.
And so I went to Acting Academy, and that was the start of it all, because I went to Stella Adler here in Los Angeles. And that school is not an acting school. It's like a human school. It teaches you how to be a more empathetic, better person, how to really relate with somebody. Because if you judge a character, you can't play him.
Right.
Like, you know, if you just say, oh, well, the guy's a fucking scumbag. Well, then you can't play that. You're just playing it. You have to understand why they do what they do, because everyone rationalizes what they do. You know, I mean, Dick Cheney.
The scumbag doesn't believe he's a scumbag.
Yeah. I know. I had a scumbag recently tell me that he comes from unconditional love. And I was like, are you sure about that, buddy? You know, so like learning to rationalize where people come from, and it gives you an empathy. Like when you see a homeless person on the street, you don't just judge them. It's like, how did this person get here? So that was part of it. It was just my actor training. And then truthfully, I found ecstatic dance, and ecstatic dance took my acting training and then times it towards 1,000, because I was learning how to express without doing this.
Right.
Which is kind of cool, because your body does tell a story. And when you get in tune with it, it'll tell you what decisions to make. It'll tell you when someone is good for you or not good for you. It's a receiver. I always say the body is a receiver. The mind can be a deceiver. And so getting into that space, I really started to learn how to tap into the body. And when that started happening, then the expression just started happening. And then I started doing men's work, and I started seeing the importance of men just coming together to be able to talk about their shit. Because everybody is holding on to, I've seen 2 primary wounds. There's more, but the 2 that I see primary are like the I'm not enough and the I'm separate. And when you have other people say like, you are enough and I'm with you, it gives you that permission. And I think there's something really powerful about that. And so that's like the very abridged version. So
I'm going to pause really quick there. What is men's work for those who have no idea what men's work is?
Good question. Men's work, I just consider it a space for us to come and authentically talk about what's going on in our life. You can fill it with all kind of types of different exercises and connection and games. And we at the particular ones that I've done, we do workouts and we do some eye gazing, we can do all kinds of things. But at the end of the day, it's a space for people to connect. What I see in the world a lot is a primary problem is that of disconnection. Right. And men internalize stuff a lot. That I brought up my father, God bless him, but that generation would do this. They wouldn't talk about their stuff. And then you get that like, oh, you can't say that in front of grandpa. You know, you get that whole situation. So men need it. And women, y'all have been doing much better than our fairer gender on this. You guys have been able to...
We blah, blah, blah all the time.
You do blah, blah, blah. No, but you guys get into spaces and connect with each other. And it's important. It's important because, number one, just to feel like you're not alone. And also, like, if it's in me, it's usually in we. Like, if I'm feeling something, chances are you've probably felt it too. Right. And when I'm able to, you know, just basically express that to you, then you're like, oh yeah, me too. It makes you not feel so alone. It validates you. You don't feel crazy. You know, a lot of times in this it's hard to be adjusted to this particular style of society sometimes. And it's not that bad. I mean, like, I think we do live in a pretty cool simulation here. But you know, you have to have a space where you can go and I'll be honest with you, it's nice sometimes to have it just be around men. You know, because we do have a little switch in us that turns on when there is a woman around. And this is, again, like, you can break this down a million different ways, but when you have people around you that you feel comfortable fully expressing, that you don't have anything to prove, or that you're not have an agenda with, or you're not trying to get anything from, that's when you can really truly express, because you're in a space where you're not really having to think, am I saying the right thing? Is this person liking me? Does she think I'm cool? There's none of that. You just get into a space where you can actually talk about what's coming up for you, and then to have other men around, it's really, really powerful.
Oh, I love that. I love the work that you do. I feel something that's come up for me time and time again as I've stepped into this space. And I think this is why you and I gravitated so much towards each other, why I gravitated towards you, is as I've stepped into the spiritual space, I've found myself desiring to be a bridge. That term continues to come up over and over. I want to bridge the gap between, you know, the woo-woo spiritual, namaste world and everyone else, because everyone else needs pieces of that. But something like ecstatic dance, there's certain elements of the woo-woo space, most of them. I met someone the other day. I'll probably have him on this podcast soon. This is amazing. He said, I'm not woo-woo, I'm just woo.
Yeah.
I was like, I love that because I think we all need a little woo in us. And I think we all need permission. And maybe we can tie this into what the human permission slip is. I think that people need people like you, need people like me, need examples of what's possible in order to feel like they're allowed to step into certain levels of vulnerability.
And that's a good point. And I think if I can piggyback on that,
please.
The thing that I think you do well and that I do well is that we're not evangelical about it.
Yeah.
I'm not here, it's all love and light, and, you know, this is better and you need to do this. No, it's like, all right, this stuff has helped you, right? It feels better to express yourself, right? It feels better to dance freely. It feels better to do these things. And you are the living embodiment of it. And so when someone sees you and you're authentically in it and you're not coming from an agenda place, you're not trying to prove anything to them. When someone sees that, it radiates, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. All right. They're not coming at me with like, oh, hey, it's just love and light and namaste. It's like, no, this is a dude. This is like a dude. I'm a dude, You know, I fart, I burp, I'm a dude. You know, I like to talk about these things because it's helped me. But if it doesn't resonate with you, I'm not ever going to try to force anything on anybody or say that one way is better than another. You know, my sister, I have a twin, and she lives, you know, the typical, you know, American dream. She got the 2 kids, a house. And I hate sometimes when I have my artist friends who like kind of shit on it, you know? Like she doesn't know better, or they're more evolved somehow. Everybody has their own particular life lessons that they're learning, and your spirit is evolving no matter what you're doing. You know, and you don't have to be this world traveler to be worldly. You don't have to be the first person on the ecstatic dance freight train. You don't have to be wild and open to be evolving in your spirit here and in your path here. Everybody has their own. And the cool thing about it is when you recognize somebody who's just like really on their own path and they're not pressing anyone else to be that way, you're like, hey, dude, what's she doing? You know, like you want to know what they're doing. You know, and there's a power in that because they're not trying to be anything. They're just doing what works for them.
Well, and that's, you know, why I wanted to be really specific with the language of what the intention of this podcast is. It's about stepping into your dream life with the caveat, whatever that looks like for you. Because my dream life can look extremely different from your dream life. And to the point of your sister, like, that's a beautiful dream, to have a home, to have children. I mean, there's give and take to all of it. The lifestyle choices that we've made have taken us down very different paths, and that's not for everyone. And I think we're each born with, you know, a soul calling if we so choose to accept it. Right.
Yep.
And personally, and I feel you probably feel similar, my soul calling's really big. And I hate that sometimes because it's a lot of pressure to have to listen to it. And sometimes I wish I didn't have that. I wish that I didn't have as much ambition. And I don't even think it's about ambition. I think it's just about truly, if I'm being honest, it's not like I'm trying to do something big because I'm trying to prove something. My soul is yelling at me to follow this certain path that it's wanting me to go down.
Yeah.
And that's where that distinction comes in. I think you're nodding along to that.
Well, yeah, no, I think there's a big distinction there too. You know, Rick Rubin was talking about this, that like somebody asked him was like, how do you know if the art that you're making is worth it? And he's like, if you're already thinking of worth, you're thinking of an outcome.
Right.
And an outcome is not your responsibility at all. And you have no control over it, right? You have control for your actions and what you do, right? Mm-hmm. And so whatever that soul calling for you, like I call it your genius, right? Because that's actually where the word genius comes from. It has nothing to do with intellectual prowess. And your genius means, in Latin, it's like, it means you're guiding light from within. That's what it actually means. So it's like when you see someone who's following their genius, it's somebody who is like doing what lights them up.
Yeah.
You know, when you would watch Kobe play basketball, you'd see a man who was like in his genius. Mm-hmm. You know, when you see, you know, I don't know, John Frusciante play guitar, you know, like that guy's in his genius. And we love watching that because it's so uplifting, you know, but it doesn't have to be, and it isn't result driven. It's like,
right.
Anyone who's read the Bhagavad Gita, the primary teaching of it is that you do the action's sake for the action, not for the fruit of the action, you know, and you don't have control over the fruit of the action. So if your genius and your life plan is calling you to do it, that's your only responsibility, is to follow it.
I fucking love that. I'd love to dive a little deeper into the work that you do. It sounds like as this bridge, specifically, I feel like for men, right? I think that you are such a beautiful example of such a beautiful, like healthy balance between masculine energy and feminine energy. And I think it's really ironic that before we hopped on this, we pulled cards, as we do, and we pulled the Spirit Priestess, which is all about feminine energy, when we were talking about how I wanted to talk about masculine energy. So curious to hear a little bit of, you know, your thoughts on that duality and how that shows up in your life and how you guide and lead with that.
Well, I think that's so important because there are like masculine characteristics and then there's feminine characteristics. And this is like, let's break it down to a science as easy as we can, right? All right, masculine is positive, right? It's the giving energy, right? It's the positive side of the battery. Feminine is receiving, right? It's literally that simple. So not thinking of it as gender, right? Masculine tenets are like assertiveness, directness, doing, stewardship. Those are all very masculine, right? Feminine is like receiving, sensuality, rest, nurturing. Now, what I have experienced in the terms of gender is that men, in my experience, this is just one man's experience, they have a tough time with those feminine qualities a lot of the time. So a lot of men that I meet, they don't know how to nurture themselves. They don't know how to take care of themselves. They don't know how to tap into their sensuality. They don't know how to tap into their sexuality, right? Receiving, abundance, that's feminine. You know, these are qualities that men have a tough time with. And it's a practice, you know, like I'll give you an example of a shift that happened for me because it's important for my men's work. So it goes back to ecstatic dance, which has been like a Jedi playground for playing in different energies for me.
Right.
And, you know, just being real, just keeping it real. When I used to see a hot girl, like let's go back like 5, 6, 7 years ago. When I see a hot girl at dance, I'd be like, how do I get that? You know, that was the energy though. You know, that was the energy. I was like, how do I get that? Because I didn't see it within myself. Something happened around 4 years ago or so that instead of saying, how do I get that? I said, how am I that? Like, how do I feel that? You know, how do I access that within my own body? So I would see a woman who was dancing sensually, and instead of like trying to go agenda based and try to get it, I would tune back in. How do I feel that? You know, and put my hand on myself. That's why I had you guys touch your nipples at the beginning. No, but seriously though, it's like, you know, how do I feel that from within? How do I feel my own inner sensuality? And the neat thing that happens when you start to do that is then people can actually feel it, that you're not then trying to get anything from them. You know, because when you have the ability to feel that from within, then you become like the lighthouse, you know, where you just turn on your light and people feel like, oh, that's a safe place. That person is in touch with their inner sensuality. So women actually are more drawn to you.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost counterintuitive. You know, by like tapping back into yourself and tapping into your own qualities, you become more palatable for the opposite gender. And that is something that I noticed just in general, is that I started feeling a whole lot more confident in myself because I started playing in those qualities. And it also directly goes up against that, like, I'm not enough bullshit. Because how can you, I mean, we're everything. We're all the things, you know, so how can you not be enough when you're everything?
Yeah.
You know, it just becomes like, all right, how do I give these places in myself attentiveness? How do I allow them to express? And so a lot of the times it's through your words. A lot of the times it's through your actions. A lot of times it's through movement. And so I started like working into my sensual, moves on the dance floor. And I really found a lot of beauty there. And I think that started to tap into what eventually became the human permission slip, because it was like, these parts are present in all of us. And it's not just the feminine, masculine qualities. Your inner bitch, your inner asshole, your inner scumbag, everybody has it. Everybody has all of these parts. But if you deny those parts, in my opinion, they kind of like pull the strings from the subconscious. And so when you allow those, like, a safe place to express, that's why acting school was so good for me. Because you could play out that inner rapist. You could play out that inner murderer in a safe place and get to know that part of you, because it's inside every one of us. Everyone has the capability to be a saint, and everyone has the capability to be a sinner. The only difference I find is that, like, I've been lucky enough and blessed enough to be able to find spaces where those parts of me could be expressed safely.
Yeah.
You know, and I think when you've done it enough, then you know how to help other people do it.
I love that. Well, safety, I mean, that's such a big piece too. When you were talking about, I've learned so much on the dance floor through Ecstatic. It's like, honestly, one of the most profound things I've ever done in my life. And I continue to learn so much. But one of the big pieces that I learned in that space was how to feel safe with the masculine. There's two things that came up when you're speaking. One is, as a woman, right? All of those pieces of the feminine side, I was living in my masculine side for a really long time. I was living in the doer, I was disconnected from all of the qualities of feminine energy. And so I had to learn that as well as a woman. Yeah. And then separately from that, on the dance floor, coming into connecting with others. When I first started going to dance, I was very in my own energy. And especially if there were men around, you were actually one of the only men that I felt comfortable dancing with, because you were the only one that I felt safe dancing with. I feel like you articulated it so beautifully that I didn't feel like you were trying to do anything. I didn't feel like I just felt safe. And the dances get fucking intimate. I mean, like, there are moments where, you're dancing with a complete stranger and you're like straddling them and on the ground, and like, it is sexy, it is sexual, it is intimate, and it's not about sex. Yeah. And I learned so much on the dance floor through that, because at first when I started dancing and I would dance with, the few men that I would dance with, I would leave confused. Yeah, because I had such an intimate, beautiful experience with that person that I would be like, oh, do I like them? Do I want to have sex with them? Yeah. Like, I don't know. And then I would sit with it. And sometimes I remember one, I'm not going to name any names, but there was one.
Yeah, maybe don't, but.
Not going to name any names. There was one person that I had like a really hot dance with. Like, it was like, and I was like, oh my God, I want to date this person. Yeah. Like, we have such great chemistry. Like, let's see how it goes. And we hung out outside of dance, and there was no chemistry at all. Yep. It was purely physical. Yeah. And to get to play that out without actually becoming intimate, because, and we were chatting a little bit before this as well of, my journey right now. I've been recalibrating my relationship with the masculine, right? So first it was internally, how do I have a better balance between the masculine and feminine energies and bring more feminine energy into my life? And that's been a big part of my practice. And then externally, how do I renegotiate my relationship externally with men? where I feel like when I came into my sexuality, you know, in college and in my early years, I used to use sex as a way to connect because I was craving intimacy so badly that I thought if I slept with someone that I would get all those feelings that I wanted to feel. And I quickly realized that was a very fast way to feel extremely empty and alone. So it was a very, very tumultuous relationship, and dance helped me heal that and helped me understand how to build intimacy with men, with women, with anyone, just intimacy in general without having to give my whole self over to that person.
Absolutely. And I think everyone listening can relate to that. I really do. I think there is a pretty ubiquitous problem that people mistake the need for intimacy with the need for sex.
Yep.
You know, and learning to discern the difference between the two is huge in your adulthood, because sex can and does complicate things. And it's the most powerful, it is literally the most powerful thing that we can do for a spiritual connection. And so if you're just kind of like throwing your energy around out there, you know, it can be harmful to yourself. So
the minute I started thinking about sex as an energetic exchange, everything changed.
Yeah.
Everything changed.
Me too. I used to be a fuckboy.
Well, I just never thought about like, and again, as the masculine and feminine, the giver and the receiver, like as a woman, you are quite literally receiving the energy of whatever is going on over there in the masculine energy. And so if that person's intentions aren't pure, if that person has some unresolved shit, whatever it is, they are quite literally giving it to you. Yeah, and then if you don't know how to clear it, you are then holding on to that. And yep. I've been in this process, you know, throughout my spiritual journey of like, I'm cleansing all of the connections that I had that weren't pure, that weren't genuine. And I think communication too, going back to like, you know, on the dance floor, we're not speaking, we're communicating energetically, but even in real life, you know, in this hookup culture, casual sort of atmosphere, it's okay if all you're wanting is a physical connection. Sure. It's okay. Like nothing's wrong in those situations. No. What's wrong is being deceitful, lying about it, and or just not being clear about it. Because if one person's going into an energetic exchange with the hope and desire of, I want this to turn into something, and the other person knows up front, there's no chance that's going to happen. I just want to bang. This whole culture, it's like, it's so simple. We could solve so much heartache, so much pain, so much frustration, so much deciphering with just clarity. Yeah. And people are so uncomfortable and afraid to have those conversations. And from my perspective now, I'm like, if I don't feel comfortable asking you what you're desiring for this connection is, probably shouldn't be getting intimate with you.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more with everything that you just said. I wonder what you think the root of that is. Like, I have my own thoughts on it, you know, but I'm wondering, like, why do you think people won't, or they kind of step away or have an aversion to having that conversation, to be honest, to be upfront? Why do you think that is?
I think there's a few reasons. I think, first of all, so many people are disconnected from self that they're not even being honest with themselves about where they're at or what they're desiring. So, you know, before you can communicate it to another person, you have to get in touch and actually check in with yourself and be honest about that. And then I think there's like pleasantries, right? Like, oh, I don't want to hurt your feelings, so I'm going to lean into this even though I don't really want to do this. I was having this conversation recently with someone about saying yes and no, not even in a sexual sense. Let's say you invite me to come to a party. Yeah. If I say yes and I show up, I mean it. I want to be there. I will never say yes to you if I mean no. And what that does is that takes away your like, you don't ever have to worry that I'm doing something just to please you. I had a situation with a guy a few weeks ago, actually. I was on a date with him and we were chatting, and he was trying to be so careful about, he was like, if you need to go or if you're tired, like you can go. And he was trying to give me permission to step away. And I was like, if I didn't want to be here, I would have left. Yep. And he goes, oh, okay. I just want to make sure because there's so many people that feel bad or they don't want to hurt your feelings. So they'll just stay. And then that's where it gets confusing because your actions aren't in line with your intentions. And then other people have to sit there and compensate and worry and be in concern of, do you really want to be on this podcast right now? Or are you just doing this because you felt bad because I asked you and now it's weird because you're here and like, I'm uncomfortable because you didn't actually want to be here. And it's like, but you could have just said like, no, not aligned. And I would have been like, great, all good.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like, no problem.
Yeah, that dynamic that you're talking about gets conflated even more when you're in relationship with somebody. Because because the flip side of that coin is the people pleasing thing, but the people pleasing thing is because you don't want to be rejected.
Yeah.
You know, like, all right, if I don't people please you, then you're somehow not going to love me. You know, and that part of it, that's the breeding ground for resentment.
But then how can we reframe that? Right. Yeah, go ahead.
You just said it. The number one like spiritual tenet, I believe, is accountability.
Yeah.
Like you are accountable for your own energy and this is something that we all got to work on. You're accountable for your yes. You're accountable for your no, you know, and you're accountable to be honest. You're accountable to say what's on your mind. You're accountable to speak into your energy. You're accountable to live in your highest. You're accountable to be honest. You know, this problem of like, I did this because you did this. And this is foreign policy to a lot of degrees of like, well, we bombed them because they bombed us.
Yeah.
It's like, no, like you have, all right, being responsible has the word sponsor in it. It's like you sponsor to uphold. You are to uphold to your values. It's not to react to. So I'm not reacting to you. I'm responsible for myself. And so I'm responsible. If my no is a no, I have to tell you that.
Yeah.
And it's for me, the thing that I've worked on, and this is my own anecdotal, is that fear of being rejected. Is that if I don't say yes to you, then somehow I'm not gonna get love from you. And I've been working on that one for 40 years because I don't subscribe to that at all anymore.
Yeah.
At all. Even with my partners, you know, like I'm getting married, and God bless her, I have a mantra that I use all the time. It's happy with her, happy without her.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful one for me because like, I want to build a life with this person, and I am building a life with this person. That being said, is like my worthiness is not wrapped up in her, and that those two can't get conflated. Like I have to be my own wonderful person, and I get to be in this partnership. And so it's like it gets harder to be able to do that when you live with somebody because there's like little things that, you know, do build resentment, like. Do the dishes. You got to do the dishes.
Yeah.
You know, and like, but I have to also be able to like say, hey, babe, you know, like I could use some help. Could you help me? Yeah. Instead of like, you know, shoving it down and then resenting her because I'm doing her dishes.
Yeah.
And it's little things like that, but that's the things that make a healthy relationship. And it's,
totally.
And those, and in the hookup culture, those are like, I haven't been into the hookup culture in years. That being said, I used to. And I wasn't great about it back, you know, in my 20s. I didn't know how to tell a girl I wasn't interested. And the reason I didn't know how to tell a girl I wasn't interested was because I didn't know I couldn't handle rejection.
Right.
Okay? So if I thought I was rejecting somebody, but you're never really rejecting somebody. You just, you're speaking to what your wants, needs, and desires are. And if it's not in alignment with them, that's actually a redirection. It's redirection.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was like, how can we reframe our minds to truly, like there's the cognitive understanding of it. And then there's like the visceral embodiment of the understanding that rejection is redirection. If someone says no to me, if somebody doesn't want me, if someone's not receptive to my energy, there's this piece of me. And now in the journey that I'm in, I'm still catching myself, right? Like I took a long break from dating and I'm just getting back in it now. And I'm catching myself in these moments. I'm catching myself desiring to, you know, so many of us are conditioned to receive a rejection or a form of rejection, right? In distance and whatever it is. And I used to take that as a challenge. Let me show you. Let me show you how amazing I am. I was like, you don't even know how. And so when I started therapy, the funniest thing, my therapist told me I had my root problem was that I didn't feel worthy. And I was like, you're crazy. I'm great. I was like, what do you mean not worthy? I was like, I think I'm amazing. I don't think anyone's out of my league. I think I know what I bring to the table. Like, I know I'm a fucking catch. And then I was like, but where I show and act upon not feeling worthy is that when somebody is showing that they're not interested, or when somebody isn't giving all of themselves to me, I see it as a challenge to prove to them just how worthy I am, because I don't feel good until they recognize it.
Absolutely. And that's
the scary one in there, because like it's sneaky.
No, it is sneaky, because it's like, it seems like a self-confident thing.
Right.
You're like, no, I'm awesome. I'm the shit. Why can't you say it? Why can't you say it? Why can't you see it?
Yeah, literally.
Look, please just see it.
literally, right. And then now, like, I'm stepping into these spaces and I'm like, I'm going to be as open and communicative as I want. I'm not, I'll be very clear of what my desires are. And I'm like, either you reciprocate it or you don't.
Yeah.
And reciprocate it with your actions.
Yeah. Yep.
Show me that you see me. And if you don't show me that you see me, moving on.
Next. And that's okay.
Totally. But it's still, even now, with all the work that I've done and all the awareness that I have, I will still catch myself in these moments of, okay, they're showing me. And I read something once that was really beautiful in this space, was that it was like, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them.
Yeah. Yep.
Believe them.
In the deck that we just pulled from, that's the owl spirit.
Yeah.
The owl spirit is about that discernment of when someone shows you who they are, you need to listen. And that's another one that, I've done that in friendships before. It's not even just in romantic relationships. You want reciprocity, or I'll speak for myself. I want reciprocity in a relationship. And I've noticed there have been friendships before where I wasn't receiving that, and how much I would ignore that shit.
Yep.
Because I just wanted to keep the peace. And I think
to keep the peace, and I'll piggyback on that. Yeah. I've done that in relationships, in platonic relationships, where I've ignored it because I didn't want it to be true.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
And so if I pretend that that's not what's happening, and I excuse the behavior over and over and over again, I go, oh, they're just busy. Oh, they're just this. Oh, they're just that. And I give an excuse, and I like intellectualize it away, and I don't listen to that gut visceral feeling of like something's off.
Yep.
Then it's not real. If I don't acknowledge it, it's not happening.
And I think what you just touched upon is such an important note. You listen, your body's going to tell you. And this is why, just as a side little tangent, but this is why why movement practices are so important, why meditation is so important, because your body does tell you these things. It'll give you these little indications that, oh, hey, this isn't right. Something's off. Something's off here. And when not listened to, it's like any other muscle. Like, the more you listen to it, the more you trust. Your intuition intuition itself is like the feminine part of the psyche, and your cognitive will is the masculine part. So it's like, when those two are flowing together, it's like I listen and then I act. It's literally that simple. But when you start diluting it by not listening, it's like, oh, because you don't want it to be true. That person is so fucking awesome, and I want this relationship to work. And I've done that to myself, and I hurt myself the worst I could ever imagine, hurting myself in a friendship where, this person clearly, like multiple times, did not show that level of reciprocity. And I was just like, nah, that's cool. Same.
I've had like the craziest friendships where after the fact, and I look back and I'm like, there were so many red flags that I completely disregarded because I just didn't. So again, it's like, if you don't acknowledge it, then it's like that it didn't happen. It doesn't hurt. Like, you're like, man, that friend did some really shitty, horrible things to me. And because I didn't acknowledge it, I was like, no, it's fine. It's fine. I'll take it one step further though, before you can even listen to it. This is where, and the movement practices, this is where connection to self. I was having this conversation with a friend of mine, and he asked me I was talking about dissociating and being disconnected from your body, right?
Sure.
And for me and my journey, I recognized I was out of my body for majority of my life. I didn't really come back into my physical body until 2022-ish.
Yeah.
So all of that time before, not only was I didn't even have the ability to listen because there was nothing to listen to because there was nothing going on.
Yeah.
there was no, like, my intuition and my gut and my ability to discern, and it was, the valve was fucking off. And
how did you turn it on?
Plant medicine.
Yeah.
Plant medicine was my window into, and then all of the tools that I've learned in integration and how to bridge that gap between, you know, it was plant medicine that I always describe it like the plant medicine's the lighthouse. So it showed me what was going on. And then I've obviously dedicated my life towards doing this work and rowing the boat to the lighthouse.
I like that.
You know?
Yeah. I like that too.
Because it's like, it's not gonna solve everything, but it showed me something that it turned something on that I wasn't even aware of. And I don't think that the plant medicine path is for everyone. I think if you're sober or it's not something that you're feeling called to, there are many other ways to arrive at these places.
Yeah.
Meditation, movement, dance, all of these different breath work.
Yeah. I think for anybody out there who is sober and the plant medicine path is not for you, I will offer a suggestion to check out Vipassana. If you have the time, it's a 10-day silent meditation. And I have done both paths. You know, I have done some plant medicine and that has been helpful for me, but nothing in my life has been more helpful than spending 10 days really tapping in and learning to listen to my body, because it teaches you a technique to do it. And you'll walk out of there knowing the little sensations that arise when there's a constriction. There's little sensations that arise when you're excited, and starting to be able to discern those two, because I was like you until I was like 26, 27.
Yeah, same.
First of all, I didn't even know you could ask for help.
Yep.
I didn't know that your body was like a receiver. I didn't know any of that until I started doing these, because I will err on the side for me, especially I'm also, whatever, age doesn't matter, but I'm 42 and I've explored a lot of the plant medicine path, and I'm pretty much for the most part done with it.
Yeah.
And to anyone who's doing it, it works for you, do what works for you. My favorite mantra in life is that there's only really two mantras. There's yum and there's yuck. And never yuck someone else's yum.
I love that.
If it works for you, do it. But I think the primary thing is really, for all of us as human beings, is really starting to be able to have inner authority.
100%.
You know, because this, describing and blaming your actions on someone else, we can't do that anymore. That's a hard no in going forward. If we want to be spiritual, you have to be accountable for 100% of your actions and 100% of the energy that you carry around. So whatever that path is that works for you to get that inner authority, practice it. I think that's the key takeaway from this. And then whether it be the hookup culture or anything in between, or, living with a partner or friendships, that's the through line, is that like, you have to be accountable for your own boundaries. But what if you don't know what those boundaries are? What if someone's listening and they're like,
well, that's what I'm saying.
I don't know how. That's what I would offer to you, is like find some sort of practice that teaches you how to listen. How to really listen to the body and how to ground in their body. And it could be literally something that's just like taking 5 minutes off of your phone and going and sitting on the ground or laying on the ground and breathing into the body. Something that simple will start to turn it on, because like the way I started equating yoga is like, it's funny how you use your lighthouse analogy, because I have a similar one. It's like your body is like this beautiful mansion. And when you start doing yoga and you start getting into that practice, it's like you're going through the mansion and you're turning all these different lights on.
Yeah, I love that.
And you're finding and illuminating all these different parts of self. And there are parts of self that like, there's like the little baby inside of you. There's a part of you that like literally wants to do nothing, that just wants to like lay on the couch. There's a part of you that could literally be, a saint. So how do you start to, really tap in and tune into these parts? For me, it simply requires slowing down. Yeah. And so like, I like to just lay down on the ground, put my legs up and put my hands on my belly and breathe into that, because I know that is like, that's what feels expansive to me. So that if I can get a baseline, if I can get a through line of like, this is what feels expansive to me, then I know what constriction feels like, and vice versa. If you know what constriction feels like, then the opposite flip side of that is what does expansion look like? And then it can become that simple. It's like when someone offers you, hey, do I want to go to that party? Does that feel
check in? You can check in. Yeah.
You can check in. Or
and with invitations to experiences, I do that practice with people. Yep. Like when I spend time with certain people, do I leave that interaction feeling like open and lit up and excited? Or do I feel like, it's a no?
And if you are early on this path, the best thing you can do is start like a writing practice, that you start to notice and you make little notes of these things. Oh, I went on this date. This is how I felt afterwards. So that when that person does hit you up again, then you have a little baseline of like what actually feels right for you. And I think that that's the important thing, is that the more attention you start to give to these things, the more they start turning online. It's the same thing as that, like that idea of like turning the lights on in the mansion. The more you
love
do
that.
it, the more trust is a muscle. I think that is 100% true. Because I don't know where my next paycheck is for 10 years. 10 years I've been living that life of not knowing when the next paycheck is going to come in. But I always have enough. And it's because I think I've exercised the trust muscle.
Wow. Beautiful. Adam, I adore you. I literally could talk to you for hours and hours and days and days. I think you are such a beautiful bridge between realms. You have so much wisdom and the ability to share it in such a digestible, relatable, normal human fucking way. And that's important. You're not in the clouds. You live here on earth with us, and you're so in the 3D, and you keep it real and you keep it fun. You keep it funny. Your dog agrees. Yeah. Well, as we kind of come to a close here, if you have any key takeaways, obviously we've talked a lot about how to come into your body, how to recognize how you're feeling, how to take action on how you're feeling, different ways in which you can tap in that way. We've talked about, setting those boundaries, being accountable. Yeah, if there's any parting wisdom that you'd like to share with us on stepping into your dream life and living in authenticity, would love that. And also would love to hear if you have anything upcoming that you're excited about that you'd like to share, and how we can stay connected with you if we resonate with what you're throwing out there.
Well, the word that keeps coming up for me when you were talking was shake it, shake it, shake it. You got to shake it out. No, I mean that though, like as we have this dog here as a reference point, is like when an animal has a traumatic experience, let's say like a dog gets attacked or something, the first thing they do is shake it out. You got to shake it out. So humans though, like you'll be walking, let's say you're in New York and you're in a busy space and someone bumps into you, you like internalize it. You don't shake it off. So shake it off. It's really important that we like take time to shake shit off, because if you are out there and maybe some of the stuff that we're saying isn't digestible yet, or you're like, I don't know how to do that because I'm holding on to a lot of stuff, it's important to shake it off. Like right here, I got a light. Boop, that's a light right there. Now, if I don't take time to like clean the dust off of this light, right, it starts to get covered in sort of like a film, right? And then it does the light. I think at our base, we're all light. And through life, traumatic experiences happen to every one of us. There isn't a person out here who doesn't have trauma. But these little things happen, like your coach tells you you're never going to be good enough to play on the varsity baseball team. Little piece of dirt lands on you. Some girl that you liked in 6th grade, says that you weren't, she didn't like you. A piece of dirt lands on you. Or your parents say that you'll never be the smart one, that your sister's the smart one. Another piece of dirt. And these events happen, and eventually you get covered with dirt. And I think if it goes long enough where you're not taking the time to clean off your light, you start to think that you're the dirt. And I think that's where mental problems can really start coming from, is because we start to actually really truly believe that we're the shit, that we're the dirt. And the truth is we're all the light, but it just takes time to like dust yourself off, So if you're out there and you are hurting, and I know a lot of people are hurting out there. If you're out there and you're hurting, find your own personal way to like shake it off. Find people to talk to. There are people that are going through what you're going through. I guarantee it. Guarantee it. You're not alone. So you're enough. How could you ever possibly not be enough when you're everything? Tap in and start to listen to the things that you want. Your intuition will start to get bigger and bigger and bigger if you listen to it. But the primary thing is you got to act on it. So it can't just be something that, well, I heard it, I didn't do it. You have to do it. That's the muscle. That's like that's the flex. The flex is doing the thing, but you got to listen. So my primary advice would be shake it off. Shake this shit off. Know that you are the light. You're not the dirt. And start listening to that light. That's your genius. It can tell you absolutely everything you need to know. And the more you listen to it, the better life gets, the more fun life gets. So that's my closing thought. Yeah, where to find me? I am just like every other human being. I'm on Instagram. You can find me. Oh, that's beautiful timing. My fiance's coming in. Adam Dorsey 1 on Instagram.
We'll link it below.
Yeah, we'll link it below. Human Permission Slip is my website. And then if you're in Los Angeles, our next men's group is this July 25th. It's a Thursday. We can link that in there too. And if you ever just want someone to talk to, you can hit me up. I'm Adam Dorsey. I'm Googleable at this point, I guess. You can find
Wait, he's also what's your character that you play that the Mike's Hard?
Yeah, I'm the hearted farmer for Mike's Hard. Yeah.
Maybe we'll link the video to that too, just for funsies.
You should. We didn't even talk about acting, so yeah.
Another one. Well, thank you, Adam, so much. I'm so grateful to have had you. So grateful to have you as a friend and a mentor in my life. I'm so grateful that I get to have a platform to share all of my favorite people with. And it's just been such an honor and a blessing. And I hope to have you back soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Show. I'm happy that you're doing this, and I'm proud of you too. And I miss you.
Miss you.
Okay.